You have Lil Nas twerking on the devil. You have drill artists singing about stabbing people to death in the middle of a knife crime epidemic.
Now, I want to talk about these recent comments Andrew Tate made about drill rappers and Lil Nas X. He did this interview yesterday with a guy called Piers Morgan. The interviewer asked Andrew if all young men should aspire to be like him. He responded saying a couple things, but I want to more so focus on what he said on this part.
I mean, should young men, though, all aspire to be like you?
Should young men aspire to work very hard, have no criminal record, become multimillionaires, protect and provide for the women close to them? Be sovereign so they can stand up and have their own points of view in face of cancellation.
And then he continued by saying this.
I'm certainly not the worst influence out here, Piers. You have Lil Nas twerking on the devil on music videos, which our children are digesting. You have drill artists singing about stabbing people to death in the middle of a knife crime epidemic.
So as you could hear, Lil Nas X caught a couple stray bullets, which he actually ended up responding to. I don't want to focus so much about what Andrew Tate is about in this video. Let's actually talk about what he said as it relates to rappers and Lil Nas X, because that's what we talk about on here. Let's start with Lil Nas X, because he got into it with some Andrew Tate fans on Twitter. Lil Nas X came across this clip of Andrew Tate mentioning him, and he responded by saying the following on Twitter. Andrew Tate, please stop mentioning me, ! I am never gonna let you smash. Loser. An Andrew Tate fan responded to the tweet by saying, why would any sane human being want anything to do with a weirdo who thinks twerking on a devil in a music video is aesthetically appealing? People like you are the problem in this new society. Your mum, okay, because he's from the UK, carried you for 9 months to be a bitch. Lil Nas X decided to clap back and responded to this by saying, no, people like you are the problem while quote-unquote real men like me provide for their family and community. Niggas like you sit on Twitter using Andrew Tate's dick as a pacifier because you were never taught how to be your own man. You don't have to do him like that, bro. Damn. Another Andrew Tate fan tried clapping back at him by saying, F you, F-A-G-G-O-T. Lil Nas X responded by saying, calling me a F-A-G-G-O-T is not gonna get you anywhere near closer to Andrew Tate. Tickling your gooch. Now, Andrew Tate brought up the Lil Nas X twerking on the devil thing during this conversation, essentially saying, hey, I'm not the worst thing out there. Look at this guy, Lil Nas X, who's doing a little dance on the devil, and children are watching this. He also made a comment about drill rappers and the violence they promote in their music, trying to make the same point. First of all, getting the Lil Nas X stuff out of the way, children shouldn't be watching anything explicit, period. I think anyone who's listening to this agree with me when I say that, and that obviously includes Lil Nas X twerking on a devil, okay? So Andrew Tate is not saying anything controversial. That's something we all know. With that being said, my question is, if your kids, hypothetically speaking, are watching Lil Nas X twerking on a devil, who should take the blame for that? Is it Lil Nas X, or is it the parents for doing an awful job at keeping their kids away from this explicit content? This new generation has to start taking accountability for the fact that they give their children smartphones and they let them use that shit freely. And then they're surprised that their children are on the internet watching a bunch of explicit content that their young minds shouldn't see. If I had a son right now, which I don't, and I caught him watching a Lil Nas X video where he's doing a little dance on the devil, I wouldn't put the blame on Lil Nas X. I would put the blame on myself for not keeping my child away from that. If you give your children smartphones and you don't monitor what they're doing on said smartphones, don't be surprised that your children are being raised by the same content that you're letting them consume. Everybody wants to absolve themselves of the responsibility they have as parents to raise their kids by putting the blame on things that are on the outside. Even in this generation where it's hard to keep your children away from things that they shouldn't see, the responsibility is always on the parents to make sure that your kids aren't seeing the shit that they shouldn't see. The second you start putting the responsibility on outside forces, what happens is you give those outside forces power. And now you think you're powerless in the parenting role of your child because you gave your power away to Lil Nas X. Now, as for his comments about drill rappers, he didn't really expand too much on that, but let me expand on it. Drill rappers make music talking about shooting, killing, popping perkies while they're at it, airing out the whole block, all that. This is obviously violence being discussed in the music and perpetrated in the streets that we don't need more of in the world. And for anyone who doesn't know, because you might be new here, that's what I've been talking about on here for the last 5 years. The responsibility drill rappers and just rappers in general hold is immense. Unfortunately, a lot of rappers, specifically street rappers, talk about these things and ignore the fact that they're influencing an entire generation of kids with their music. Now, here's one thing Andrew Tate didn't talk about, however. A lot of these drill rappers are actually kids themselves. It's a bunch of young kids, young black kids who came from impoverished communities. They grew up in extremely harsh conditions. The majority of them come from single mother households, so they don't have a father in their household. So they venture out into the streets searching for that guidance by seeking that validation and love they lack domestically. And so they start idolizing the gangbangers and dope boys, thinking that's what a real man is, because they obviously don't have a clue of what a real man looks like. So to them, the corner boys become their role models because that's what they've been surrounded by their entire lives. That's what we call being a product of your environment. Andrew Tate obviously didn't talk about this, and I think it's irresponsible because now you've demonized an entire subgenre of music on national television without bringing up the root cause of why these kids, the majority of them being young black kids, are perpetrating all this violence in the first place. You can't discuss drill rap without discussing why it exists in the first place is what I'm saying. It ain't as simple as they're talking about it just because. Drill rap is the direct result of a bunch of socioeconomic factors severely lacking in said communities. Income, education, employment, social factors come into play as well. This is the same reason why Eric Adams censoring drill rap was met with so much pushback. Here the mayor in New York is talking about censoring this music while completely ignoring why the music is a thing in the first place. Andrew Tate might have brought up a good point, but he completely failed to bring up the other aspects, which is the social and economic factors that lead to the manifestation of something like drill rap. How are you going to make a comment like this about an entire subgenre without talking about what's really going on in the community? To me, it doesn't make any sense, and it's also misleading. And I see this so much. People always throw dirt on hip-hop as a genre, but they never for some reason discuss what the content that's being discussed stems from. Drill rap, no matter what way you look at it, is a reflection of life. It's a reflection of what's going on in a lot of communities. The content that's being discussed might inherently be negative, but how can the problems be addressed if we don't talk about the core of why these kids are talking about what they're talking about? Anyway, any thoughts on this topic? Like we covered, Andrew Tate decided to diss rappers, specifically drill rappers, and Lil Nas X for twerking on the devil. The Lil Nas X shit I look at and I say, just be present in your children's lives and actually monitor what they're consuming, and I promise you, your kids won't be exposed to Lil Nas X twerking on the devil. However, if they do end up coming across that, hey, no worries, just blame it on celebrities because you're not doing your job as a parent. I recognize that these artists have power for sure, but number one, why are you banking on the fact that a celebrity is going to act in the best interest of your children? And number two, who has the ultimate power? That's right, the parents. Anyway, any thoughts on this topic? Definitely let me know in the comment section below, and like this video, like, stop being stingy. Don't be stingy. Like it. Thank you. Let's have a discussion about this.